Hello Africa, are we prepared to stand with Captain Ibrahim Traoré against the imperialists and the Western power? Listen what Captain Ibrahim Traoré is telling Africa.
Whether you're a Democrat or not, how can you impose democracy by killing millions of people? It's a dictatorship, not democracy. You can't impose it. Those who call themselves Democrats have seen scenes where people were prevented from joining assemblies. We've seen scenes where forces landed in assemblies to force deputies to take texts. We've seen more terrible scenes where people kill their demonstrators. But they call themselves Democrats, and we're called Perseus. If that's democracy, I repeat, we don't want this democracy.
Yes, kings and queens, you heard from Captain Ibrahim Traoré denying the Western democracy. You cannot say that we are democratic while you kill demonstrators. We have seen demonstrators being killed, being punished, and yet you are saying that you are democratic. So, and this is the Western democracy that has been imposed to African countries. So, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has denied and saying, and that's why you see Burkina Faso decided to ban these periodic elections, and have been saying this. These periodic elections are being used by the Western power to divide Africans. And you know very well, during campaigns, people are fighting each other. So through that, people are being divided. So periodic elections are the technique being used by the West to divide Africans. And if you want to prove it right now, look what happened in Mozambique right now as I speak to you now. Go and search in some platforms, see what's happening in Mozambique. So, kings and queens, let us continue listening what Captain Ibrahim Traoré is telling Africa.
And when you see incompetence, they don't seek to know what the real meaning of the word democracy is. They cling to the definition given to them by imperialism and start talking about democracy without really knowing the basics. That's incompetence. You have to know, look at the world to redefine democracy as we want it in Africa.
Yes, kings and queens, we need to define our own democracy, not this Western democracy that always based on periodic elections and multipartism. So, kings and queens, all of us, we know that multiparty is the method used to divide people in the countries or in certain countries. We have seen during elections, people are being divided. Then after elections, there are those who have been accepting results, others denying the results. Then after that, you see people fighting each other. So you see, this is the technique used by the West to divide Africans. Also, in terms of these periodic elections, we know very well that there are those who are sponsoring these elections. You see some observers coming to tell us this election was conducted well, but all in all, these are things that have been used by the West to divide Africans. So, kings and queens, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has said enough is enough. So it is a time for we Africans to come together to support this young visionary leader. So Captain Ibrahim Traoré went far and saying why the West are imposing these democracy and sometimes sanctions, how the West are seeing Africans. Listen to what Captain Ibrahim Traoré has said.
Continues to suffer because of imperialists. This continent has suffered so much and continues to suffer because of imperialists. These imperialists have only one cliché in mind. Africa is the empire of slaves. This is how they see Africa. For them, Africans belong to them. Our lands belong to them. Our subsoil belongs to them. They have never been able to change the logic until today. This is deplorable. But how do they proceed? Unfortunately, it is since the 1960s that these 6,000 acres of independence have been given to Africa. They have just placed local valets at the head, according to them, of
Yes, kings and queens, you heard how the imperialists are seeing Africa. They still believe that Africa is the empire of slaves. And that's why you see, we have seen recently some African leaders saying that they are finding jobs for the young Africans abroad. So we are still supplying cheap laborers to the West. So it means we are still slaves. So you cannot tell me that the continent with all these resources, we are still exporting cheap laborers, and someone is coming out and telling us proudly that I'm trying to find jobs abroad for my people. How are we proud to become gardeners, to become house girls and house boys? So I think we are still, the people are still looking Africa as slaves. So, and that's why Captain Ibrahim Traoré is disrupting the agendas of the West, and I'm sure that the West are not happy. So my question is, we Africans, are we prepared to protect this young, brave, visionary leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré? We have seen he survived several coups attempt and some assassination attempt, but I didn't hear anything from African Union talking about Captain Ibrahim Traoré. You know, this is taking me to remember what happened to Gaddafi. All of us will remember how African Union was silenced by NATO when they tried to mediate in Libya. Listen what Museveni said concerning about the issue of African Union. Listen.
Sometimes we will not agree with him. Now, when this problem of Libya started, the African Union, with our chairman, who is here now, this gentleman here, they formed a committee of a few of us. I think we were 6. I was one of them. The whole of the African Union gave that committee a mandate to look for a solution for the Libyan problem. Now, on one occasion, I didn't go that time. These excellencies, this one here, Jacob Zuma, and the others, I was not there, but my minister was among them. They entered a plane in Nouakchott, in his place. They were going to Libya to mediate. And they were told by NATO to go back. Yes. Said, you go back. Yes, he's here. If I'm telling you lies, I'm not the one who invited him, you're the one who invited him. African presidents on an African mission over African soil were ordered by NATO to go back. That NATO has not allowed them to land in Libya. Now, we call this in Swahili, dharau. Contempt.
Continent, our soil. Then someone sitting somewhere and saying you are not allowed to land in your soil or in your continent. So you may see, and that's why Captain Ibrahim Traoré said how the imperialists and the Western power are seeing Africa. They're still thinking that Africa is still the slave, the empire of slaves, and that's why our leaders are told by NATO not land in Libya. Don't go to Libya. So just imagine you wake up in the morning and someone telling you don't enter your house. How is it possible? So kings and queens, I think it is paining. You see how it is paining, and that's why I'm asking. These people are not resting. They are not. You see, like things are going smoothly. They are planning how they are going to disrupt Burkina Faso. So it is a high time for Africa to learn from this history. What we heard from President Museveni, I think, is a big lesson for us, to not to keep silence and not to think that things are going smoothly. They are not silent. They know how. Now they are planning something. So we need to wake up. Young people, young Africans, where you are, in the diaspora, in the continent, you must understand no one is outside there to help you. It's our high time to come together to help this continent. We cannot help this continent if we keep silence. Our elders, you see, they didn't do anything concerning about the issue of Libya, and they have been told, don't do this and don't go to Libya. So it means our leaders was seeing what happened to Gaddafi until Gaddafi was removed in power and being killed. So you can see how it is paining, my dear brothers and sisters. So kings and queens, you see how we are still under control. So we want Africans all over the continent and the diaspora. Let us support this young man. He's doing very well. He is disrupting the Western agendas. You know, we fear maybe we are going to die, but even you remain, you will die, because death is inevitable. So don't say maybe if I support Captain Ibrahim Traoré, I'm going to die. Even if you didn't support him, you're going to die, because death is inevitable. So, but let us make the history as the people of Africa. You know, one thing that is paining me is that we, the current generation, we have done nothing for this continent. You cannot compare with previous generation. If you go to the generations of our ancestors, you see how they resisted. You find different wars, Maji wars. You find Mau wars, and many resistance. You find that our founding father Shaka Zulu and the others, you find how they resisted colonialism. If you come to the generation of Kwame Nkrumah, Nyerere, Mandela, you see how they fought for independence. And now we have the generation of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. I know we have a few of them. We have Malema at that age. We have this man, Captain Traore. We have Assimi Goïta of Mali, of course. We have also someone in Senegal. So we need many young people to come up and say enough is enough. What have we done for this continent? What are we going to do for our mother continent? You see the Europeans, the way they came together, they did for their continent. Europe today is developed. Why? Because there are some people who decided for the future of Europeans. So kings and queens, it is paining, but it needs all of us to come together, brothers and sisters. Africans, we have taught to hate each other, so we don't love each other, and that's why you see we are still keeping silence about what happened to Burkina Faso against several coups. But you find the African Union trying to sanction Burkina Faso or Mali or Niger, ECOWAS. So instead of helping the people, you know, as Traore said, the issue of democracy. Democracy is the will of the people. If people want Captain Ibrahim Traoré, no matter how maybe there's someone who is maybe democratic, but that is the democracy that we are talking about. We need to define our own democracy. Let us move on and listen again from our elder, our grandfather, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, concerned about these issues, or the issue of Libya.
The situation in a number of points in Africa does not give credit to the African people. The security situations in Libya, Mali, Niger, some parts of Nigeria, Chad, Central African Republic, some parts of Cameroon, Eastern Congo, Somalia, recently northern Mozambique, etc., must be addressed and can be addressed. First of all, the situation in Libya was created by the arrogant and irresponsible actions of some actors that took actions that were against the express position of the African Union. I can reveal to you that those actors had a narrow escape. When some actors started attacking Libya against the decision of the African Union, I contacted His Excellency Jacob Zuma of South Africa and proposed that African armies that so decided to intervene in Libya and confront and teach a lesson to those aggressors.
So, kings and queens, you heard the idea of President Museveni when the actors started invading Libya. He proposed that we need to send African troops. But let us ask you today, if those actors who invaded Libya and attacked Libya can start to attack another African country, do we have army that can help us? Do we have African army? And you know, we don't learn from the history. And this is what it is paining me sometimes, that Africans, we don't learn from the history. So, and if we are serious, this is the high time to form one army for the continent of Africa. We must understand that the enemies are not silenced. The enemies are not silenced. They are not tired. They are still coming. They are using different tactics. We are not the tactics that we don't know. So I think it is a high time for Africa to form our own army, Africa Army. So I know that those who are the best friends of those who are doing all these stuffs, so they think that they are safe, but my brother, you are not safe. You are not safe. My daddy, my mother, you are not safe. Let us come together. And this should be the lesson for all Africans in the continent and those who are in the diaspora, to see that we failed to protect Gaddafi, and this time we should not fail again to protect other leader who those who are acting will come again. So we need to form our own African army. We have these generals, and I'm very happy. Even Museveni is a general. Is army general. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is a captain. We have Paul Kagame is army general. We have Assimi Goita of Mali general. We have General Abdulrahman of Niger. We have Mamadou Doumbouya. He's a general army. So we have a lot of generals. Why you generals you should not come together? So I call our generals in the continent of Africa under the leadership of President Museveni, and I address those who are watching this video. Please help me to send this video to President Museveni and asking him, please, our grandfather, our daddy, I know you are going to retire soon. So before you retire and you are going to rest, do one thing: call all these generals. Call Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is like your son. Call President Paul Kagame, is your friend. Call Mamadou Doumbouya. Call Assimi Goita, is like your son. Call Abdulrahman Tiani, is your young brother. Call all them and sit down and say, what are we going to do? What are we going to offer as generals of the continent to make sure that we form even at least we have to have a joint troops that can protect the continent of Africa somewhere. Now we have seen conflicts in Sudan, in Libya, in Sahel, in northern Nigeria, as Museveni himself said, in northern Mozambique. So this is the high time for Mr. Museveni to help this continent. I know this young man will not reject your call. Also, he will come, even sending even representatives, even call, maybe try to speak through call or through Zooms and discuss on how we can form our own army. What happened to Libya is a big lesson for all of us, the people of Africa. So I think brothers and sisters, you can see how Africa we are being undermined. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm waiting to hear from you. Please make sure that you share this video to President Museveni, because I'm calling my grandfather, my father, my leader, Mr. Museveni. Call your other generals in the continent and see how you can help this continent. So what happened to Libya will happen again. The history has a tendency of repeating. So maybe it is not going to repeat today or tomorrow, but the history has a tendency of repeating. So there's a time when African army will be needed to risk something. So this is the time for Mr. Museveni to help this continent. So kings and queens, let us move on and see. I want to share one thing about Captain Ibrahim Traoré. You know, Africa's youngest leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is relighting the rules in Burkina Faso. His actions are shaking the foundations of Western power in Africa and inspiring a new wave of independence across the continent. But how is he doing it? That's the question that all of us we need to ask. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is a leader on a mission, not just for Burkina Faso, but for all of Africa. So we need to support him, and that's why I was listening Joshua Maponga calling African leaders to send soldiers to Burkina Faso to learn the little revolutions. You know, during independence time, a leader such as Mwalimu Nyerere hosted the SADC troops. Soldiers from Mozambique came to Tanzania. Soldiers from South Africa trained to Tanzania. Soldiers from Zimbabwe trained in Tanzania. So you can see at that time Mwalimu Nyerere was visionary, and this vision we need also to re-energize this time and to rebirth those vision of teaching our soldiers, our young people about revolution. So we need our soldiers to be sent to Burkina Faso to learn more about revolutions. So we need to hone this continent. We need to make sure that our continent is safe. So kings and queens, as I said, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is a leader on a mission, not just for Burkina Faso, but also for all of Africa. By standing up to Western powers, he is challenging a global system that has long kept the continent in the shadows. Whether he succeeds or faces insurmountable challenges, one thing is clear, that Africa is waking up. For decades, all of us, we know that Western powers, particularly France and the Western countries, European countries, have maintained a tight grip on their former colonies under the banner of security and economic partnership. They have controlling resources, dictated policies, and stationed troops or military bases across Africa. Traoré's deficiency has sparked a wave of resistance across West Africa. So countries like Niger and Mali have followed Burkina Faso's lead, so demanding an end to Western military operations and asserting control over their resources. And that is one thing that is very important. So kings and queens, as I said many times, in the Africa Diaspora Summit, that is very important. We need to address all these challenges. But the problem that I see, Africans, we don't believe in ourselves. I'm saying this, but there's those who don't believe that we can have Africa Diaspora Summit. So we need Africa Diaspora Summit. So kings and queens, let us not speak for too long. What do you think about Captain Ibrahim Traoré's bold stance against Western powers? Is this the dawn of true African independence, or will it lead to further conflicts? Please share your thoughts below and subscribe for more deep dives into global transformation. So kings and queens, have decided to share these visions and my views, of course, my thoughts. So kings and queens, please share also your views, your thoughts on this matter. We want Africa to be liberated, and no one is in Europe, in China, in Russia who will come to liberate this continent. It's we, the people of Africa, who are supposed to liberate our mother continent, Africa. So don't fear anyone. Please respect everyone, but don't fear anyone. Please, 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 let us respect each other and let us love each other. And our aim is one, that we want even Africans to enjoy the cake of our beautiful continent, Africa. So how do you feel when you see young people dying into Mediterranean Sea? How do you feel while you see our mothers and our fathers, our children suffering in Democratic Republic of Congo? How do you feel if you see people are dying in Sudan? How do you feel when you see people are suffering in Somalia? How do you feel when you see people, children, being killed and tortured in Nigeria, northern Nigeria, by Boko Haram? How do you feel when you see insurgents in northern Mozambique, in Sahelian region? How do you feel when you see people are suffering? So Africans, all of us, we are one. All who are in the continent and those who are in the diaspora, let us come together. Please, please, we have a great duty of this to liberate this continent. So where you are, kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen, do something for your mother continent, Africa. Even though you are not living in this continent, you are maybe abroad, you are living in Europe, yes, you are good, no problem, but do something for your ancestors, do something for your continent. So I hope the message was sent and delivered. So let us come together. So let us, everyone where you are, preach the issue of Africa Diaspora Summit. We want Africa Diaspora Summit. We are tired of seeing China Africa Summit, Europe Africa Summit, US Africa Summit. This time we want Africa Diaspora Summit, where our intelligent people, our leaders, our representatives will come together and discuss the future of this continent. So kings and queens, let me say thank you. Have a nice time. See you next time. Bye-bye.